every day. But if you have a bigger vision for your business, it's time to make the experts at Town Square Media a part of your team. Why? Because at Town Square Media, they have the most advanced advertising tools to help your business finish 2024 strong and increase your sales all throughout next year. Now is the time to turn to Town Square Media. For one day only, you can enjoy deep advertising discounts on their top stations. You know the ones your potential customers listen to every single day? And they don't do just radio. They have amazing digital tactics to help maximize your reach and target your exact customers. If you're thinking bigger for your business, then it's time to think Town Square Media. Take action and go to townsquaresouthjersey.com to request information on their customer appreciation sale. That's townsquaresouthjersey.com.
Home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig.
It's good!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here, hanging out with you. The start of NFL Week 5 is tonight. We'll get into all of that, plus some thoughts on the Phillies' upcoming weekend. Who their opponent is will be decided tonight, and hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Coverage begins coming up at 7 p.m. between Game 3 of the Mets and the Brewers. We'll dig deeper into the NFL with Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press coming up a little bit later in the hour, less than 20 minutes from now to be exact. As always, you guys can join the conversation at 609-403-0973 and your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And before I give you some thoughts on the Phillies a little bit later, and I'll give you my picks for the NFL and football coming up a little bit later in the show, I do have to hit on the audio and the news that's been kind of bouncing around throughout the day. We talked about it throughout the day on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. And that is what was said all week. We are starting to get to the point where I don't even know if anyone is answering the questions of what is wrong with the Eagles, except for I feel like everywhere I go, you're calling for firemen to put out the fire. You ever see that gif of the dog that says everything's fine, and the house is burning down around him, and he just sits around drinking a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever it is? And I feel like somebody called the fire department, and the fire department showed up, and they said, we'll throw some gasoline on the fire before we put it out. I feel like that's what everyone is doing right now. Because when Dan Orlovsky said this morning on Get Up, it's not that he's wrong. It's not that anything Orlovsky said here is wrong. But the problem is that you're piling on here, Dan. You're not helping bridge to a solution here.
That's a poorly coached football team. Watch their tape. Since the start of 23, has anyone gotten better on the team? I like that. Jalen Hurts, in a matter of 20 games, has gone from an MVP in the Super Bowl to a liability on offense. And I know Jalen Hurts isn't lazy.
It is a serious problem for Philadelphia. And the coaching has to be pointed out. But the problem with this conversation is that you can say the Eagles are poorly coached, but you gave up the play calling duties to Kellen Moore. You brought in an entirely new offensive system with Kellen Moore. You fired the quarterback coach. You brought in Doug Nussmeier. You fired about 90% of the whole coaching staff. So if we're saying the Eagles are poorly coached and you fired 90% of the coaches from last year, getting on national television and saying they're poorly coached, it's not helping the situation. And I think part of the problem when it comes to this Eagles conversation, and it's just giving me agita. It's just making me just completely exasperated, is people keep putting out narratives and storylines and takes. And it's like, that's great. Anyone with half a brain can do this, which is why I can't hate on Orlovsky, because he is one of the few people at ESPN that is not a hot take artist. But if coaching is the problem, then how do we rationalize the fact that you already fired 90% of the coaching staff from last year? Are you saying that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman have all of a sudden gotten really bad at hiring coaches? And I know some of you out there are going to say at 609-403-0973, you're going to point to Nick Sirianni. But as Diana Rossini reported 2 months ago from The Athletic, Sirianni didn't hire these guys.
It's Howie Roseman that has the power now. And look, he always has the power, right? That's nothing new for Philadelphia. But in terms of moving forward into this season, Howie had his hands all over the decisions when it came to the coordinator position. And when they made change at defense.
Which is not normal, by the way, for everyone listening, for a GM to have his hand in coordinator positions.
But he does. And it doesn't matter if it's out of the ordinary or not. So you can point to the coaching staff. You can say the coaches didn't do a good job. You know, we can blame Fangio for the defense on Sunday and blame Kellen Moore for some of the offensive issues. But we got to spread it around a little bit here, folks. We got to look around and say, it might not all be Sirianni here. There might be somebody else to blame in this situation. Michael Lombardi on the GM Shuffle podcast.
Everybody's giving Sirianni. Well, you just hired Kellen Moore to be the greatest offensive coach since Vince Lombardi left the Giants, and he hasn't scored a goddamn point in the first quarter. I mean, where's his game plan? When does he get called on the carpet?
Right.
And I think for me, part of this problem is that when I look around, I don't see a Philadelphia team that is going to get better by us to just keep dumping on them. Okay? At some point, we got to look around and figure out how do we fix the problem? Okay? And I just keep going back to, where do we stop blaming Sirianni and point a little bit to the front office and say, you built this roster, you hired these coaches, you did all this stuff. So what now? And that's why, for me, when Dan Orlovsky says this, it definitely does stand out to me, because if you look at the timeline of the Jalen Hurts issues, it does make sense for one reason.
You mean to tell me in 18 months he's gone from outplaying the best ever, or best going right now,
right,
to on that list? You mean to tell me that with an offensive line that is top 5 in pass protection, he's throwing the ball, holding the ball time-wise at 3.1 seconds and getting pressured 60% of the time? There's a massive regression.
There is a massive regression. But I think there's a pattern here. Jalen Hurts has had the best years of his career with 2 coaches and nobody else. Am I supposed to believe that is a coincidence? You guys let me know at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. We can blame the coaches, and I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to sit here and be like, man, these, Sirianni, Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio, Doug Nussmeier, whoever you want to point to, they're all in part to blame. But why is it that when you go through Jalen Hurts' college and NFL years, Okay? Why is it that I'm just supposed to suddenly believe that Jalen Hurts just accidentally got bad? Am I supposed to just accidentally assume that things went bad for this guy? Look, there's been a lot of people who have been Jalen Hurts' coordinator over the years. Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, right? Doug Peterson, Brian Johnson, Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni. This young man has worked with a lot of coaches over the years. And you can't forget about Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll even had his hands on Hurts at one point at Alabama. But there's only two coaches who have gotten the best years of Jalen Hurts. And in those 2 years, he was second in the NFL MVP voting. And in college, he was second in the Heisman Trophy voting. No one seems to want to answer why. Why when we look at the Eagles, it's only been Lincoln Riley and Shane Steichen who have gotten the most out of this young man. So I'm okay with Dan Orlovsky saying this, but you're not actually fixing the problem. You're not actually answering the question. You're a fireman who showed up to a 3-alarm fire and decided to throw gasoline into the building.
I think it's way more on the coaching and what they're trying to do than Jalen Hurts. I think it's really difficult to watch a player only do this in many ways, like peak and then all of a sudden plummet with his ability to play when he's not lazy and didn't have injury.
609-403-0973 is the text board. Also your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Text chimes in and says, it's the front office's fault, not Sirianni, because he should have already been fired. In no way should Sirianni have been brought back. The Eagles had an epic collapse last year. That was the time to offload Sirianni. Well, Stephen EHT, first of all, thank you for texting in. I don't disagree with you, okay? But if you can hear me out, for me to explain the situation and not take it as me trying to justify the Eagles' decision or explain it away. For whatever reason, the organization is very comfortable with Nick Sirianni. The owner of this team, the general manager of this team, they like Nick Sirianni. They are comfortable with him. Why are they comfortable with him? Because players like Jason Kelsey, Devonta Smith, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, these players, and many more than that, by the way, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, they all speak highly of Nick Sirianni. The only person who has not been able to give you an endorsement of the head coach is the quarterback. So what the organization decided is, Nick, you are no longer running this offense. This is not going to be your offense anymore. We're going to hire Kellen Moore. We're going to hire Doug Nussmeier. We're going to clear out 90% of the coaching staff, and we're going to hit the reset button for you. Because this team had its most success when we had a say in the coordinators, Doug Peterson, Nick Sirianni, and not you. Remember, Jim Schwartz and Jonathan Gannon were hired separately from the head coach. Frank Reich and Steichen were hired because they had a connection to the head coach, not because the head coach overtly hired them. So, Stephen EHC, I don't disagree with what you're saying, because I'm with you. I think the front office is to blame for some of this. But it's not because they didn't fire Sirianni. To me, Stephen EHT, the front office is to blame is because they claimed that the problem was not the head coach, that it was everyone and everything else. So now when we have all of these concerns and this fire, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? When you have this situation with the Eagles and when we're trying to find the blame, it's hard for me to point the finger at Sirianni when the front office said, no, we need to hire better coordinators. We need to retool the roster. We need to hit the reset button on everything on this team. And it didn't work, except for one game. The offense looked good for one game. Now, if you want to say that A.J. Brown being injured doesn't help, and Devonta Smith having a concussion doesn't help, fine, I can work with that. But then why didn't you make the appropriate adjustments to those guys no longer being available? We'll do more text coming up a little bit later this hour, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press joins me next on 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 a.m. with Unsportsmanlike on 97.3 ESPN with Evan Cohen, Super Bowl champion Chris Canty, and Michelle Small.
Can't wake up without it.
Brought to you by the Gallery Bar Book and Games at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Take 10 grand off MSRP. 0% for 72 months. 0 payments for 90 days. Or 2 new Matt Blatt Kias for $222. You don't need a sports betting app. Get to Matt Blatt Kia and be a winner. You heard right. 10 grand off MSRP and 0% for 72 months. 0 down or 0 payments for 90 days on every clearly marked EV in stock. Currently stuck in a loan or lease? We want to get you released. New 24 Kia Forte LXS. Just $111 per month lease. Why not get 2 for $222?
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
With approved credit, 10 grand off customer cash and dealer discount. EV9, $38,900 per thousand through KMF. 24 months, $111 per month, 10,000 miles per year, $49.52. Not all will qualify. Offers can't be combined. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes through KMF.
Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and on Route 37 in Toms River.
The time for holiday hosting is upon us, so make your second bathroom second to none with HomeDepot.com's best savings of the season. Right now, enjoy up to 40% off select online bath. Find the latest on-trend styles of vanities, faucets, showers, tubs, toilets, and more. All at prices that will let your budget relax right along with you and your beautifully renovated bath. Get up to 40% off select online bath plus free delivery at the Home Depot. Subject to availability, see HomeDepot.com/delivery for details.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. The Phillies will play Saturday to open up the NLDS against either the Milwaukee Brewers or the New York Mets. Those two teams play tonight in Milwaukee, the deciding Game 3 in the wild card round. Zach Wheeler will start the opening game for the Phillies. The Mets tonight will start Jose Quintana against Milwaukee's Tobias Myers. The Yankees will open up the ALDS on Saturday against the Kansas City Royals. Garrett Cole starting in the opener for New York, who took 5 of 7 from Kansas City during the regular season. NHL, the Flyers will play their final preseason game tonight, hosting New Jersey. Philadelphia coming off a 4-1 loss Tuesday to Boston. They'll be on the road to open up the regular season on October 11th against the Vancouver Canucks. And the Eagles are on a bye week. They return in week number 6 when they are home to face the Cleveland Browns. Philadelphia at 2-2. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Good afternoon with your South Jersey weather forecast. I'm Joe Kelly. Heading into tonight, a few clouds here and there. A low temperature tonight of 55. Tomorrow looks really good. Lots of sunshine, high about 55. And the weekend looks, well, excellent, especially for October. Sunshine both Saturday and Sunday. Highs both days in the mid to upper 70s. As of right now, the next chance of rain will happen Monday morning, but after that, it looks like another dry, nice week for South Jersey next week. Enjoy your evening. That's your South Jersey weather forecast. I'm Joe Kelly.
Your business is your passion. It's a huge reason you get out of bed every day. But if you have a bigger vision for your business, it's time to make the experts at Town Square Media a part of your team. Why? Because at Town Square Media, they have the most advanced advertising tools to help your business finish 2024 strong and increase your sales all throughout next year. Now is the time to turn to Town Square Media. For one day only, you can enjoy deep advertising discounts on their top stations. You know the ones your potential customers listen to every single day? And they don't do just radio. They have amazing digital tactics to help maximize your reach and target your exact customers. If you're thinking bigger for your business, then it's time to think Town Square Media. Take action and go to townsquaresouthjersey.com to request information on their customer appreciation sale. That's townsquaresouthjersey.com.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Watch that game from this past weekend. There's one person on that football team who pops off the tape. It's the new guy, Saquon Barkley. There's moments on that football. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith aren't available. You throw the ball 7 of the first 9 snaps, and I love Kellen Moore. He's a good friend of mine. What the fudge are we doing? Why are we not giving the ball to Saquon to start the game?
That was Dan Orlovsky on Get Up this morning on ESPN television. Orlovsky had a good question. What the fudge are we doing? We'll ask Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. He joins us right now, senior NFL writer each week here on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, welcome in. How you doing today?
Josh, I almost fell out of my chair here in Ola. I thought he was about to drop a different word there. What the fudge? Oh my goodness! I actually, and I love Dan, but I have a simple explanation for that one, and I buy what Nick Sirianni said about, hey, when you're down that quickly in the game, there's not that many, and you run 9 plays, there's not that many opportunities to get Saquon Barkley. Before you're down, you give up a touchdown, another touchdown, you outscore 24-0 and out gain 255-0. They didn't lose the game because Saquon Barkley didn't get enough touches. That's for sure.
Could you have argued, though, they should have maybe run the ball more early in the game to set up the pass later in the game?
They got the Buccaneers are a great run-stopping team with Vita Vea on the field, and I just don't know what the Eagles could have done in that situation. Like, listen, they sucked. They were terrible. They were outcoached. They weren't prepared. They were outplayed. They were absolutely just hideous in that performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday. But let's not understate the fact that this team, like, they didn't want to use an excuse, and kudos to them. And I asked Jalen after the game about it too as well, and he said, no, I didn't play good enough, and he didn't. But what team in the NFL is going to play well without their 2 top starting receivers, who are arguably one of the 3 best tandems in the NFL, and a perennial Pro Bowl right tackle whose record without is significantly under 500? So I'm not ready to fire Nick Sirianni because they were outmanned as well in that game. And yeah, the Buccaneers were missing some guys on defense too, Antoine Winfield and Kalijah Kancey. But it's hard, I don't know of a quarterback, Josh, that can have success with backup receivers other than a guy named Carson Wentz in 2019 when he was throwing the football to Deontay Burnett, Robert Davis, Greg Ward, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in 4 must-win football games. And, oh, by the way, went 4-0 with 1,200 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 100 passer rating. And I know this by heart because I've mentioned it on 17 different shows that I've done in the past 2 weeks, because that's the only quarterback I have seen win with a practice squad group of players. Oh, and another guy named Brady, who turns like Chris Hogan and Wes Welker and all those Danny Amendola into Pro Bowlers. But it's hard. It's just hard to do when you're that shorthanded.
So you're looking at the game on Sunday as less of a, hey, there's a fire here in the house because I smell smoke. You're looking at it more like the Eagles weren't going to win this game anyway.
I picked them to win, so I look like a moron for doing that.
You made a compelling argument, Rob, why they shouldn't have won. So then why did you think they were going to win?
I thought Saquon Barkley would get 30 touches, I didn't think the defense – the problem was the defense couldn't stop Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. I thought the defense would come out, would show up, especially after a performance the week prior that they had against the New Orleans Saints, who look like world beaters for 2 weeks. So I have a bigger problem with Vic Fangio than I do Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni. I think this falls squarely on the defensive coordinator's shoulders when your defense goes into that game against Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, who the Broncos provided a blueprint for you a week earlier on what to do to shut down the Buccaneers. You take away the run, and they can't run the football. They just can't run the football. So it's not that difficult to take away the run, and you make Baker Mayfield beat you, and they let Baker Mayfield pass on them at will. They should have been able to find ways to make life more. He was sacked 7 times the week before that. They couldn't sniff him against last week. This one is on Fangio and it's on Howie Roseman more than it's on anyone on the offensive side.
Well, I hate to bring it up again, but Fangio himself said that he didn't expect them to have a fast, a quick pace, quick throw offense coming into the game. So it's like, well, Vic, you've forgotten more football than some of us know. If you weren't expecting it, but maybe the rest of us were expecting it, maybe you need to go reevaluate yourself.
Yeah, it's true. And how many weeks now is it that Fangio has said he's kind of essentially Andy Reided it, and I got to put him in better position. I got to do a better job. I think it's at least twice because he did it after the Atlanta game.
Yep.
And that's where it's at right now. I wasn't in love with the Vic Fangio hire. And you know what, Josh, I got to go back now and I got to do the research, and I can't do it while we're on the call, but I got to do it. I got to go back and do the research and see every defense that Vic Fangio had, because he was in Miami last year. Why didn't he stay? He's not here.
I'll tell you why he didn't stay. I remember that whole story. One, the players hated him. Remember, if you go back and watch the in-season Hard Knocks, he was invisible on the entire Hard Knocks. And the moment he left, all these players were tweeting out, "Thank God he's gone. There's a God in heaven because Fangio's gone." Like, they were throwing
and their defense wasn't that good, right? The defense wasn't great last year. It was the Dolphins were. It was Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and that incredible rushing attack led by Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. That's what kind of powered the Dolphins to a playoff spot. It wasn't Vic Fangio's defense shutting people down. So
really quick, I'll pull it up here. So they were last year, the Dolphins were 10th in the NFL in points allowed. Sorry, in yards allowed, but they were 22nd in points allowed. So it's like, okay,
what was it?
22nd in points allowed, but 10th in yards allowed.
10th in yards, but 26. Yeah, I care more about points. So you give up. So you give up.
So if you only care about
your
points,
bottom 10 in points.
Yeah,
bottom 10 in points.
Right. Now, when he was in Denver, his last year they were 3rd fewest points allowed.
3rd fewest points. The year before that, 25th. The year before that, 10th.
10th. Right.
It's not till he was in Chicago in 2018 where they were 1st in points allowed. The year before that, 9th. Before that, 24th, 20th, 10th prior, 3-2-2 when he had those teams in San Francisco. Before that, 32, 15, 27, 20, 31.
But those 15, were in Houston.
Yeah, 17, 27, 13. So Vic Fangio isn't exactly Buddy Ryan.
He's a roller coaster ride.
Right? So it's almost like they've hit the other side of the roller coaster now with the Eagles. Like, you're facing a Buccaneers team last week that is – they've got the capability, and they showed it last week. But the week prior, they also showed when they can get out-coached by a defensive coordinator who came in there and did a number on them and shut them down. So they're also up and down. The Buccaneers offense, they go as far as Mayfield can take them because they can't run the football. They got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin. They've got 2 guys who can go for 115 to 120 yards week in and week out, and Mike Evans usually almost always does that. But if you put pressure, if you find a way to get pressure on Baker Mayfield, Like the week before, 7 sacks, and he gets a little jittery in the pocket, and he starts to run outside the pocket, and he'll rush his throws. That's the problem with this team. They can't generate any pass rush, and they got to figure out a way to make life difficult for these quarterbacks, or else anybody's going to sit back there and pick you apart. I don't care if it's Baker Mayfield or Gardner Minshew or whoever you're going to play at any point this season. They get an opportunity to sit back there, and they have time. And Kenyon Mitchell, Darius Slay, they're not terrible corners. I think Mitchell fared pretty well against Evans. 2 catches, 19 yards. I believe those were the numbers. And obviously Mike went 8 for 94, touchdown. But you got to pressure the quarterback. And if you don't get to the quarterback, you don't make his life difficult, you got to find ways. And that's on a defensive coordinator. I don't care what kind of scheme you got to design. I don't care how you stunt them. I don't care what you have to do. You got all these first-round picks on your defensive line. Figure it out, Vic.
Yeah, and when Jalen Carter's getting triple teamed, there has to be somebody else who can get there. If you only have 5 offensive linemen, if 2 or 3 guys are on one guy, that means somebody's getting single coverage.
Simple math, right, Josh? Simple math. Like it's 3 guys are blocking 1 dude, 2 are wide open. Like you got a free pass, and then maybe 1 drops back in coverage. The other one's got to come. He's got a free shot. Get there. Do something.
We're talking with AP senior NFL writer Rob Maaddi here on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, you mentioned about the Fangio, so I want to ask you this, because I asked this question. I've been trying to ask this question, and maybe you're the person who's going to oblige me, okay? Or maybe you're not. Maybe just shut me down and tell me to go take a long walk on a short pier. But, so let me ask you this. We have been told that the person who hired these coaches, Fangio and Kellen Moore, was the front office. Howie Roseman said they invested a lot of resources to rebuild the defensive secondary. So if the defense is part of the problem, why don't we blame Howie Roseman for what is going on the field right now?
People aren't blaming Howie Roseman. Like I'm not listening to Philly talk radio and everything going on in the city right now. But I thought, just from some texts that I received from, I'm still on in the group chats with family and friends and people, like, I'm seeing that for Howie, but I'm surprised that that's not the sentiment, because this is the team he put together. Howie's the one who made the decision to let Hassan Reddick go. And yeah, you got a draft pick for him, and to give Bryce Huff a 3-year, $50 million contract. And he hasn't done a darn thing yet. I mean, this is Howie's team. He assembled the team. He's the one who wanted this coaching staff to be reconfigured, and ultimately it should fall on him as usual. Now, Howie's got a lot of sway and a lot of pull in the organization with Jeffrey Lurie, and we know the relationship and the history, and being, what did Jason Kelsey say? He was kicked out and put on the other side of the building and all that stuff, and then came back and built a Super Bowl contender and another team that went to a Super Bowl. So he's bought himself a lot of leeway, and I think we've all moved past the JJ Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf and Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, and there's hits and there's misses, and every team has that. But yeah, ultimately it's got to fall on the guy who put the team together, because it looks like it's a flawed roster right now. It looks like they don't have the pieces on defense. And again, we go back to getting pressure on the quarterback. Guys aren't generating enough pressure. And it's twofold. Did Howie sign and assemble the wrong guys? Is the coach and the coaching staff on the defensive side not putting them in the best position? Could be one or the other. Like, it could be a combination of both. But you always got to start with the front office when a team is underachieving, and you have to say, hey, the pieces aren't there. But at some point, in some cases, you also have to look at the players. You have to look at those pieces. Like you look at Jacksonville, and they're 0-4, and they are a play away from like 3 wins, and the world's falling apart for Doug Peterson. But in his defense, he's got a quarterback who got paid $50+ million, who each game is like missing a wide open receiver with a really poor throw that could be a game turner, game changer, a touchdown, or whatever it may be. And you sometimes you got to execute too. So it's a combination of things, Josh. All that to say, to answer your question, I'm not going to tell you to take a walk. I agree with you. Howie Roseman needs accountability.
Well, you mentioned Doug Peterson. Let's get to him because, Doug was so frustrated with the media the other day. He just walked out of the presser. He was just like, because for those who don't know, Doug has handed the play calling in Jacksonville over to Press Taylor. And what's ironic about that, Rob, is that part of the reason why Doug is no longer here in Philadelphia is because of Press Taylor. And so
he's going to live and die with Press Taylor.
What is going on with that? Like, what does Press Taylor own blackmail on him? Like, or is Doug just too loyal for his own good? Because there were a lot of Eagle fans, Rob, who are still mad that Doug Peters is no longer the head coach. And you got to think, if he just would have said, yes, Jeffrey Lurie, I don't want Press Taylor to run my offense, he might still be here, and people wouldn't be crying about Sirianni right now.
Yeah, Sirianni was didn't build up enough equity. He didn't win a Super Bowl, so he couldn't tell them to take a walk. Doug Peterson said, "No, I won a Super Bowl here. Take a walk," and he's not there. I think in Peterson's case, one, he is loyal. He's a loyal guy, but he really believes in what they're doing. He really believes in the system, and I think part of their problem has been he said it, and it's rare when a coach will kind of throw players under. Like we've seen a few guys like Antonio Pierce a couple of weeks ago saying guys are making business decisions, right? And so he's throwing people under the bus. Doug's saying, hey, we got to execute too. Like he was defending Press Taylor by putting the accountability on the players. You got to make plays, and there's only so many ways that you can coach up guys. If the quarterback's going to go out there and miss a wide open receiver by 4 or 5 feet, that's a problem. The quarterback's got to get the job done. And I like Trevor Lawrence, but man, and last year towards the end of the season, he had injury issues. They started 8-3, and he wasn't healthy down the stretch, and he struggled. And the only game they won down the stretch was one where Trevor Lawrence didn't play. He sat out one game, and they beat the hapless Panthers 26-0 or something like that. But they lost his last 5 starts or whatever it was down the stretch, and now he's lost 4 in a row. So he's lost 9 straight games as a starting quarterback, and he's got it. I feel like a little bit of it goes back to that first year under Urban Meyer, and he might have lost a little bit of confidence. He might have lost a little bit of his swagger, if you will. Like he's saying, here we go again, and it snowballs. And like you go back to week 1, Travis Etienne against Miami, they're winning by, I think it was 10, and he fumbles at the goal line where it would have been a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. So now Miami takes the ball, new life, down 10, 80-yard pass to Tyreek. That's a 14-point swing. And I think that let the air out of Jacksonville, and it kind of let it creep those feelings of, oh, my goodness, what do we do to win a football game creeped in. And then the following week against Cleveland, they have a touchdown called back that would have given them a lead, touchdown called back by penalty, and they lose that one. They totally weren't prepared for Buffalo. They got destroyed there. You got to blame everybody, and it starts with Doug, and it starts with the coaching staff there. And then last week against Houston, on the road against the Texans team that's better than they are, the defending champions, and they're leading in the fourth quarter. And again, a play here, a play there. Bigsby gets tackled at the 4, and they can't punch it in. After a long run, they can't punch it in. And Trevor Lawrence, that one, I don't know if you saw the play, Josh. Doug goes for it on 4th and goal from the 1.5. And
yep.
I'm watching it. I'm like, it's a quarterback draw. I've seen Carson do this. And it was a quarterback draw, and Trevor Lawrence got stopped short. Houston ends up winning the game, and that's points off the board that cost them there. I don't think they're an 0-4 team that's on the verge of 2-15. I think they're an 0-4 team that with a break here or a break there, they need something to go their way to where they could turn things around. Doug's been here before. Doug was obviously the Eagles coach when they lost Carson. They lost a ton of starters in 2017. They were counted out. They win the Super Bowl. In 2019, as I alluded to earlier, they go into 4 must-win games. They got a practice squad on the field surrounding Carson Wentz. He won all 4 games. 2 years ago in Jacksonville, he starts 2-6. They're 4-8 at one point. Then they run the table. They get in the playoffs. They're down 27-0 at halftime. They win the football game. Doug's been here before. And I think that helps him in these situations to be able to help the team turn things around.
I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, maybe the answer is, I know Frank Reich's on at the retirement house, but maybe call Frank down to Jacksonville and say, look, I got a nice property down here near the beach in Jacksonville. Maybe you can come help me out, Frank. I mean, Frank's captain comeback too. I mean,
So I've asked about Frank, and I think with his contract situation, like he got paid a lot of money, and to be fired in the first season of that deal, he's got a lot of money coming his way. It would almost be sort of like, how was it explained to me? Coaching for free. And he's at this stage of his life where I think he'd rather hang out with his kids, with his grandkids, But I would love to see Frank Reich somewhere as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. I like the guy, and I think he's got a lot to offer.
Rob, before I let you go, because we are entering NFL Week 5, so we do have 4 weeks of football under our belts in the NFL. For you, taking the Eagles and the Jags out of the conversation, and I understand injuries probably go into some of this as well, but what is the team of the situation that you look at either the most surprised or most in awe of?
I think you got to start with Minnesota, Josh, because this is a team that was a consensus pick to finish last in the NFC North. A lot of people, obviously you're going to go Lions. They were like a darling to go to the Super Bowl, and they're playing like a team that's capable of it. Green Bay was coming off a playoff season, and their expectations were to continue to make the playoffs or fight for a first place. And a lot of folks fell in love with the Bears in the offseason that they had, and kind of left in the wayside was, well, Minnesota and J.J. McCarthy goes down and Sam Darnold. And look at them. They're 4-0 with some impressive wins when you beat Houston and you beat San Francisco and then go to Lambeau. And, yeah, they almost blew it, but they were up, what was it, 28-0, 28, whatever it was at one point in that game. And the way they're playing, like Sam Darnold's been playing like a guy who is an MVP candidate 4 games into the season. And their defense, except for the second half when they let Jordan Love lead the Packers down and come back, they've been tough, and they really confounded C.J. Stroud. They gave Brock Purdy all kinds of trouble, all kinds of fits. And I thought the Vikings were a team that were going to just be challenging for 6 or 7 wins at most. And here they are, legitimate, 4-0, and they look like a well-coached, well-oiled machine. Kudos to Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, their defensive coordinator. So to me, they're easily the biggest surprise. That said, this weekend in London, Sunday morning, I think the New York Rodgers find a way to pull off an upset. And I will toot my own horn. I'm 4-0 with my upset specials this year. So hopefully I didn't jinx myself right there. But I do think, like, at some point, the Vikings are they're not going to be a 15-2 team. They're not going to go undefeated. They got to lose sooner or later. Maybe they need to lose on international soil because they've been world beaters in America.
Well, I will say this before I let you go, Rob. People who believe in jinxes and luck and stuff like that, I always tell people luck only works for those who believe in it. So if you believe you're going to jinx yourself, it probably will happen because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's my
opinion. Oh, I'm all for that, man. I love how my wife is always on me to speak things into existence.
I mean, that's biblical. The Bible says life and death are in the power of the tongue, Rob. Come on.
100%. Don't speak any, but and what I tell her is I grew up in Philly, babe. And it's just years of negativity, Negadelphia, who coined that? G Cobb. Like, it's years of that I've been trying to wean myself off for the last decade plus where I've been like really diving into scripture and trying to, but you got to undo 20, 25, 30 years of all of that. So I agree wholeheartedly with you. Like when people say coincidence, and I go, it's not coincidence, it's a divine appointment. And luck, no, it's a blessing. So totally with you there. That means the Jets are going to beat the Vikings this week, and I'm going to go to 5-0 with my upset specials.
Speaking of faith on the field, Saturday and Sunday mornings here on 97.3 ESPN is the show. Rob, do you know who you got this week?
It's been a busy one. So since he's rushed for like 400 yards in the past 2 weeks, and he's on the verge of doing some incredible things, Derrick Henry is going to be the 5th guy to rush for 10,000 yards and have 100 scrimmage touchdowns in his first 125 games. If he only gets 18 more yards or one score in the next 2 games, had him on a couple of weeks ago. We're going to replay that for the audience because I think some folks missed it, and Derrick's a great dude.
He's also one of the most incredible, physical specimens that ever played football. I mean,
that 87-yard run, Josh, like a dude that big to run that fast, untouched.
I forget who I heard say it, but I think I can't remember who. I think it was maybe one of the McCourty brothers, but I forget which platform was. I get mixed up with them. I mean, they're twins.
Yeah,
forgive
same.
me. But but like one of them said that they always talked about how the key to Derrick Henry is don't let him get moving. You got to slow him down before he gets started because he said once the locomotive gets moving, you can't stop it.
Makes sense. It makes sense. And he's like you said, a physical specimen with incredible work ethic, incredible diet. I thought it was funny when Brady and Burkhardt were doing a game a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about Derrick Henry's diet, and Kevin Burkhardt wasn't quite familiar with like intermittent fasting. He's like, oh, and he only has like a banana or an avocado till like 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. And I wanted Brady to dive deeply into like, come on, let's talk about how that's beneficial and how that's helpful. But Tom just glossed right over it.
Listen, Rob, I'll say this before I let you go. Tom needs one of his buddies to take him aside and just tell him to loosen up. Like I feel Tom is trying so hard to be the perfect broadcaster where he would be better served just being Tom.
He would be better served doing what he did when he was asked about Baker Mayfield's comments.
Right.
Like
yes.
that was phenomenal, and it was dead on. It was on point. I was waiting for a response. I rode the elevator with him last week going down to the field. I had to do a hit for Fox, and he was on there with Fox with the whole crew.
Right.
And I wanted to ask him about that, and I knew he was going to – I didn't expect him to be that good on it. Like, that was – Baker, you haven't won a darn thing. Like, calm down. And I like Baker Mayfield, but you can't be saying nonsense like that. I love this week when Belichick was asked about it, and his eyes lit up like a proud dad talking about what you think, Bill, of the daycare comment. He got all happy and excited about that.
Well, Bill Belichick's also the guy who said the Eagles are running their defense and offense wrong on the Pat McAfee show. So reading to that,
yeah, I'd say, well, he's angling for he's waiting on that. I wonder this though, like if that was going to happen, Jeffrey Lurie is going to have to make concessions because a lot of people
100%.
talk about how he meets with Nick Sirianni after every game, like before Nick speaks to the media. After you think Bill Belichick's going to want to do that? Like Jeffrey might have to say, all right, Bill, I'll meet with you a different day. Like immediately after a game, I'm not sure Bill Belichick's going to be down with meeting with the owner.
Rob, I got to tell you, because I'm a listener to the GM Shuffle podcast, and Michael Lombardi broke this down a few months ago where he explained, he said, whatever team hires Belichick, and he used the Eagles as an example, he said, you have to overhaul almost your entire organization because Belichick is not a coach. He said he is an organization unto himself, and that Belichick is the kind of guy who he has a way he wants to do things. And he said, it's not that Belichick can't work with people. He said, but Belichick needs to work with people who believe that Belichick knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And as much as he gives praise to Howie Roseman at every chance he gets in that working relationship that they've had, the mutual admiration from afar. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But hey, I'm not ready to say I'm writing about coaches on a hot seat, and I'm not ready to say that Nick Sirianni is he's still got a .655 career winning percentage. They've got a schedule that's favorable coming out of the bye, and I think they can still turn this around. As much as I'm a big believer in Jaden Daniels and what Washington's been able to do, I don't think that's sustainable for 17 games, and I still think that the Eagles are going to come out on top in the NFC East.
Not to steal content for your article, but if you were to ask me, the guys on the hot seat, Brian Dable, Mike McCarthy, Matt Eberflus, Doug Peterson. That's my 4.
I got those 4 added. Who else we got in there? And Nick. Yeah. I just, so what I did, Josh, was just go by the odds, looking at some of the sports books and what their top five odds are. And I think, Mike McCarthy, certainly we all knew coming into the season, lame duck head coach, he's on the hot seat.
Rob, I'm late for the break. Appreciate the conversation. We'll talk soon.
You got it, my friend. Take care.
Josh Hennig here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios here on 97.3 ESPN. George from Summers Point, we'll check in on your texts and more on the other side. 609-403-0973 in your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Wildcard Thursday on ESPN Radio.
Mitchell, a 2-run homer, and the Brewers have the lead. It's 5-3, and this place has come unglued.
The New York Mets and the Milwaukee Brewers head to Game 3 of the best of 3. A trip to the division series is on the line. Game 3 of the Mets and Brewers.
It's Brewers Mets Game 3 on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7 p.m.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. What's better than a Sunday brunch? How about brunch on Saturday and Sunday? Weekends from 10 to 2 at select Chickies and Pete's locations. Try one of our delicious brunch sandwiches like chicken and waffle or our incredible breakfast tacos. How about a crab fry skillet featuring our world-famous crab fries topped with egg and cheese? Add peppers and onions, roasted peppers, crab or lobster. Or try our classic avocado toast. Pair your meal with one of our tasty brunch cocktails. Every Saturday and Sunday, 10 till 2 at Chickies and Pete's.
Shop Macy's VIP sale going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Order for Jennifer C. Is this my double shot, double cream, double froth, double pump, double hot, double whip, double sleeve? Yeah. Can you handle that much caffeine? Hey, did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year? Well, I do now. Seriously, did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year? Yeah, you just said that. Did you say I just said that? Yeah, I'm cutting you off. Did you say you're cutting me off?
You earn, we match. Unlimited cashback match. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
The holidays are here, and the Home Depot has everything you need to stay connected with smart home upgrades. Whether you're keeping an eye out for the big guy or keeping an eye on your family, the Home Depot has you covered with great tech, like the Ring Indoor Camera 2-pack with advanced motion detection, two-way talk, and color night vision. Plus, get your smart home devices the smart way with free delivery. Get holiday ready with seasonal savings happening now at the Home Depot. Subject to availability, see homedepot.com/delivery for details.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal.
Get a $50 gift card, good for use at Provenza Restaurant and Event Center on Wellington Avenue in Ventnor for just $25.
Get this great deal starting Friday at 9 a.m. at seizethedeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to seizethedeal.com.
seizethedeal.com. Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Quick review of the schedule tonight. So we got Mets Brewers Game 3 coming up at the top of the hour here on 97.3 ESPN FM. And then we will go right to Thursday Night Football after that, whenever the Mets-Brewers game is done, we will transition to the Falcons and the Bucks. I'll give you my picks for that in just a moment. But right now on the text board, George in Summers Point chimes in, says, hey, Josh, I think what the national media is doing now is the low-hanging fruit of the Eagles. It's much easier to blame the coaches rather than come up with a plan to make the team better. Most so-called experts do not really have a plan for fixing the Eagles. However, when an issue like this starts to get legs, often leads to change in coaching or leadership because it's easier way out for the team. That's in George Summers' point. George, I think that you have a good point. I think that what people forget about is the fact that when you look at the Eagles situation, it doesn't take an expert to point out a problem, but it takes a real adult to walk up to a problem and come up with a solution. I think that is where I get frustrated. And you're right. It is low-hanging fruit. It's easy for clicks and views and, people, getting all up in arms and creating consternation among the fan base. And you heard Rob Maaddi say it. He agreed with me. He said, look, maybe needs to be something about Howie Roseman when it comes to this team. Okay. Rob brought it up to me, and him and I are on the same page. Howie is in control of this team, and it's on Roseman to, with the owner, walk downstairs to the coaches and say, guys, we need more from you because we built this team with an understanding. Now, if you want to tell me right now that Bryce Huff or whoever can't play, I need to know, and I'll rectify it. But Howie built this roster to be successful. So that means it's on Howie to go to the coaches and try to figure this out. All right. Thursday Night Football tonight on 97.3 ESPN coming up after the Mets-Brewers game. First pitch is less than 10 minutes away. So I like the under 44 in this game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I tend to feel like the Falcons defense and the Bucks defense are pretty solid. Now, the Bucks are still without Antoine Winfield Jr., but they got by without him last week. I think they could do it again this week. I'm starting to wonder if Kirk Cousins was just a byproduct of the Vikings' good offense and the coaching he had in Washington, because obviously he's not been able to replicate what he did in the past. I also like Bucky Irving anytime touchdown. I see it at plus 155 at some of the books here. I think that this is going to be a game where the Bucks and the Falcons are going to have to grind this out a little bit, and whoever wins probably wins by a field goal in the end. Don't forget, Mets-Brewers coming up next on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great, everybody.
Hey, South Jersey, this is Billy Schwein. Tune into The Locker Room every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN. Each weekend in The Locker Room, you will get passionate sports talk from a fan's perspective, along with interviews with some of the biggest names in sports. That's every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon in The Locker Room with me, Billy Schwein, on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, because nothing could be finer than talking sports with a Schweiner.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City. A community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him. It's a sack.
Sixers.
Oh, baby.
And Flyers.
He scored!
97.